Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where LeBron James brought the trash talk of sports to Hollywood. Although, I think that's even unusual in sports, right? I'm not a big sports person, but wow, that was aggressive. He didn't even wait to see what his second weekend hold is like. But to his credit, he does have the #1 movie of the week. Plus, he matched Warner Brothers' best pandemic opening weekend to date, Godzilla vs. Kong. Space Jam 2 and Godzilla vs. Kong opening on par? That's impressive. And he also has the biggest pandemic opening weekend for a family film to date. So, it's right there. It's right there. But if LeBron James wants to be as big a star in Hollywood as he is in sports, he's got to remember the importance of making 4-quadrant movies. We're going to talk about that for sure. Also, while I appreciate that Rotten Tomatoes score stung like a and a lot of those tweets weren't so laudatory about the film while it trended top 10 this weekend, at least all day Friday. And that, hey, trending is trending. And I understand that LeBron James wanted to hit back, but I think it's important to realize that it was not so much that Space Jam 2 was a slam dunk at the box office this weekend. I want to clarify, though, that while I thought the film was okay, I said it was a party. And I had a good time at my Space Jam 2 party. I want to let you know that. And a number of people at that party enjoyed the film. As I said in my review, it's not a film to watch by yourself. It's a film to watch with friends in a party atmosphere. So again, Space Jam 2, though, it wasn't so much a slam dunk at the box office as Black Widow tripped right next to it. So let's talk about that juicy gossip, and then we'll go back to Space Jam. So remember how last Sunday I said that was all the Black Widow needed to do in its second weekend was fall less than F9? Well, it fell the same amount. It's the biggest second weekend drop for an MCU movie since Ant-Man and the Wasp. And remember, that's what I said was the situation for Black Widow. I put it on par with Ant-Man and the Wasp and Doctor Strange, although Doctor Strange fell just 50% in its second weekend. Black Widow is also one of the few MCU movies to only be #1 for a single weekend, joining Ant-Man and the Wasp, Spider-Man Homecoming, Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America, the First Avenger, and the Incredible Hulk. Not horrible company, but still not a team you want to be on. Now, of course, Hollywood is very quick to blame the film being available simultaneously on Disney Plus, because they hate day-and-date release. It's not going to last. Don't worry, we're talking about that too. And by the way, as the trades also pointed out, Disney did not release any Disney Plus numbers for this weekend, which I think is very suspicious. And Black Widow isn't in the trending section at all on the app, and it goes to 25. So I guess that trending section ain't too shady, or else they would have added it in there. Yes, Black Widow is not a very rewatchable film, except for, I think, the most hardcore of hardcore MCU fans. And it doesn't have big ramifications for the MCU at large. But I'll tell you right now who's the real culprit, who's injecting chaos into the MCU formula, and that's Loki. I mean, it's obviously Loki. So yes, Disney Plus is to blame, but not because Black Widow is available on at the service simultaneously, but because of the Marvel Disney Plus shows. Now, MCU fans, and a lot of people, love being in that world. They love it. And the hardcore fans, though, will often power those movies to incredible box office heights because they see the film multiple times. I've seen some of you see a film 10 times or more in theaters just to stay in that world. How many times have you seen Black Widow? I know a lot of you were big talk last weekend, but now we're in the second weekend. How many times did you actually go? Because instead, right after its opening weekend, you got a really nice distraction with the finale for Loki. And that was, already you have the viewing audience moving on to the next MCU chapter, which had huge ramifications for the story overall. And it catapulted that story forward, moving it so far away from the Black Widow movie that it kind of, I would say outrightly, rendered the Black Widow movie almost instantly irrelevant. After one weekend, it was irrelevant. Loki is #2 on trending on Disney Plus, as fans rewatch it or binge it now that it's completed. Some of you like to watch the season when you can binge it. WandaVision is 20, Falcon and Winter Soldier is 24. And again, Black Widow isn't on there at all, but all 3 Marvel shows are there. The shows are deeper, longer dives into the MCU, and if you want to spend time in that world, you can't do better than the Marvel Disney Plus shows. So are the movies done? Well, I think that they have to learn from this. I think that the MCU movies will have to be endgame events all the time if they want to compete with the shows. And Kevin Feige can't have this overlap in scheduling while after Shang-Chi, because unfortunately, What If is already set to collide with that movie's release. But you can bet that Ms. Marvel and Hawkeye, which aren't dated, will be scheduled around Eternals and Spider-Man No Way Home, which means one of them is probably moving to 2022, as Boba Fett will debut in late December, and all the divisions of the Mouse House have to play nice with each other. Also, there's a real nice chunk of space between Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange 2, so you can fit maybe even 2 shows in there. 10 days out, Black Widow is now only at $132 million domestic, and if it's lucky, it will likely settle in around A Quiet Place 2 and F9. I think all 3 of those movies are going to get a little higher, but ain't none of them hitting 200 million domestic, so that's disappointing. Worldwide, though, Black Widow, want to hear disappointing, Black Widow will have a very hard time catching up to F9, the most successful pandemic film to date globally. And the reason Black Widow has a problem and the reason F9 has done so well is because of China. China is dragging its feet on a release date for Black Widow. They have approved the film, but in evil stepmother fashion, they're like, we're approved, but I don't know when that's going to be, just sit tight. But the problem is that while Black Widow sits tight for a release date, it's available on piracy sites. A really good copy is available, thanks to being, because the film was released day and date on Disney Plus, a really sweet digital copy is available for piracy. And it has a number of those copies have Chinese subtitles. So pretty much everyone in China is going to have seen the movie before it ever is available to see in theaters, officially. Pristine copies of films getting online is one of the reasons that Hollywood is going to be soon ending the digital day and date release strategy. They are getting hit hard by piracy. And that's why I think the new 45-day window is what they're going to move ahead with. Speaking of the 45-day window, A Quiet Place 2's 45 days ended just this past week, and that felt like a really long time from release. So that makes me feel the 45-day window might actually work. Like, it doesn't seem like a lot when you just hear it, but when you feel it, I feel like a lot of time has passed for A Quiet Place 2 already. And you can't even rent it. It's still only available for purchase. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to some of the streaming performance numbers. Now back to Space Jam 2. It actually matched the opening of the first film. Now sure, that wasn't during a pandemic, but it was during 1996. So with F9 and Black Widow posting big numbers, I think Space Jam 2 should have opened a little bit bigger. Now, it still did good. It still did nicely. It is matched with Godzilla vs. Kong for a Warner Brothers best during the pandemic, but Black Widow was, not for free though. I still think it maybe could have done like 40 or 50. I think it could have maybe been up there with A Quiet Place. I think it could have done, I'm curious what you think. If you think this is the best that Space Jam could have done under any circumstances, Space Jam 2. I think the film would have benefited from hiring a 4-quadrant-minded director because Malcolm D. Lee delivered the usual opening that he always does. This is what Malcolm D. Lee delivers. It was important to LeBron James and his team to hire a black director, and there are business-wise, I think, better options out there. Now, Jordan Peele and Ryan Coogler, who's a producer here, are 4-quadrant directors for sure, but they aren't doing Space Jam 2. Other good choices, I think, would have been maybe F. Gary Gray, or a new talent like Nia DaCosta on the upcoming Candyman. We'll see how that film does. I think it looks excellent, and she's already been hired to do the Marvels. I would have suggested Tim Story, and I loved Tom and Jerry, and I thought that had very broad appeal, but it's on par actually with Space Jam 2 reception-wise, and it didn't do as well at the box office. And on that note, it might also be that classic Warner Brothers cartoons just don't have the broad appeal that they once did. Someone at my party really hated them. All right, so anyway, I think they're okay, but I've never been a big fan of Looney Tunes. We'll see how Space Jam 2 holds up next weekend against very strong competition, but it does have one more week before another family film sails into theaters, and that's Jungle Cruise. Although that has not looked particularly strong either, and will be available day and date at a price on Disney Plus. That's the last film they're doing that way. As for the rest of the top 10, Escape Room 2 opened on par with Spiral, as these two lag behind other horror franchises, The Conjuring and The Purge. F9 stopped the bleeding and actually held pretty well in its 4th weekend, while A Quiet Place 2 continues to hold, even though, again, it became available for purchase this week on PVOD or for free on Paramount Plus. Peacock and Paramount Plus, they can do whatever they want on those streaming services because so few people seem to have them. More evidence, though, that the 45-day window is a good idea because A Quiet Place 2 has not been damaged by becoming suddenly available after 45 days. Boss Baby 2 and The Forever Purge are also still posting respectable numbers, and I think they will do boffo business once their own 45-day windows are up. All right, speaking of streaming, let's take a look at how that's going. Now, for the week of June 14th, we have our Nielsen numbers, and sure enough, Loki, in just its second weekend, went from third place to first with just 2 episodes. Look how strong it is in the minutes. That's incredible. I suspect it will stay at number 1, and in the minutes, from number 1 to number 2 will only get greater, the divide. And I think it'll be at number 1 its entire run, and maybe even for a week or so after. And look at Sweet Tooth, still up there. Where's that season 2 announcement? Like, Robert Downey Jr. finally produced something good. I'm sure it's driving him crazy that they haven't renewed it. Also, kudos to The Handmaid's Tale. People might not be talking about it anymore. Are you still watching that show? But someone's still watching it, as it's very strong. And also, it's once again one of the most Emmy-nominated shows this year. And Disney Plus had a very good week as we switch over to movies, where Luca blew away the competition. Of course, available at no extra cost to subscribers. This week, Disney Plus has 4 of the top 10 streaming films. No one can shake Netflix's grasp on original streaming shows, but when it comes to movies, Disney Plus is really gaining some ground. And 3 of those 4 movies are current, by the way. Moana, what a superstar. I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing her more in the park, because Disney realizes just how popular she's become on the streaming service. And she is getting also that animated series of shorts. Cruella's doing really solid here with its Premier Access run, and it'll be interesting to see how Black Widow ranks on these charts when it pops up in just a few weeks when we catch up. Again, Nielsen is ridiculously behind. On Netflix this week, That Virgin River is number 1 again! Who's watching this show? Although it's been a close race with Never Have I Ever Season 2, which is in fact number 1 yesterday. And new movies, Gunpowder Milkshake and Fear Street 1666 are right behind it, although none of the other Fear Street movies of the trilogy are in the top 10. So I don't know how much longevity that's going to have on the service after the 3 weeks are done. I know some of you really had a good time with that, though. I wish they'd advertised it better. And on iTunes, A Quiet Place 2 for $20 was no match for Wrath of Man for just $6, as it became available to rent. Both are excellent films, and A Quiet Place 2 is doing quite well. It's still available in theaters, though, and I think more people are, they want to watch it, are still opting to go see it in theaters. Godzilla vs. Kong is also now available to rent and is seeing a surge, while Space Jam 2 got the original into the top 10. Hooray! As for this coming week, it's another tsunami of content as the space just gets more and more competitive. Nobody's got room to breathe or to catch their breath. Snake Eyes and M. Night Shyamalan's Old both hit theaters exclusively on Friday. Both their embargoes lift midweek. While on streaming, Disney Plus is living up to its Wednesdays are the new Fridays pledge with 2 debuts, the first episode of Turner and Hooch, and the first 5 episodes of Behind the Attraction, which is produced by Mr. Dwayne Johnson. So, of course, one of those episodes is about Jungle Cruise, which hits theaters the week after. That's actually not a bad plan to get people all psyched up for it. While the other episodes focus on the Haunted Mansion, Star Tours, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, and Space Mountain, with the rest of Season 1 coming out later this year. That is a very nice lineup. I'm watching that show for sure, and I'm curious, which are you going to just watch them in order, or which attraction do you think you'll check out first? Now, Behind the Attraction is from the Toys and Movies That Made Us guy, Brian Volkweiss, and Netflix ain't too happy about losing him. They are counter-programming, in fact, on Friday with a new batch of the movies that made us. Although I have to say, I think pretty much if you're a movie fan, you know the stories behind most of those movies already. But on Friday, trust me, what everyone will be talking about is Masters of the Universe as Part 1 drops. I hope Kevin Smith is ready to batten down the hatches. He should never have commented on those rumors. He's going to have a very interesting week. That embargo, in fact, lifts on Wednesday, and I will be making a spoiler review on Friday. Then the first episode of Ted Lasso Season 2 hits Apple TV. That's fantastic. It's no match for Masters of the Universe drama, but Ted Lasso is an 8-week run, and so it's just going to get started. So I'm very excited about that. And Netflix's movie of the week is that Vampire vs. Hijackers horror flick from Germany, Blood Red Sky, which people were pretty excited about, so I wouldn't underestimate that. So that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think of Space Jam 2 and Black Widow's box office numbers? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.